In the news tonight, Turkey renews airstrikes on Daesh sites in Syria, extending operations along the corridor near the Turkish border, which Ankara says it is clearing of terrorists and protecting from Kurdish militia expansion. Uzbek President Islam Karimov dies after suffering a stroke, leaving no obvious successor to take over the Central Asian nation. And Pope Francis will declare Mother Teresa a saint, canonizing the nun and Nobel Peace Prize winner who cared for the destitute and dying. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. Hundreds of civilians in the Damascus suburb of Mu'azzamiyya began to leave the rebel-held area in what the government described as an amnesty, part of its efforts to force insurgent pockets around big cities to surrender. The move took place a week after the surrender of neighboring besieged Daraya. The 303 people that left today are civilians who had already been displaced from Daraya and were transported to a temporary housing area in Harjala near Damascus. Conditions in Mu'azzamiyya had been less harsh than in Daraya, since it agreed on a limited local truce with the government in late 2013, allowing aid to enter the suburb in return for a halt to combat. Mu'azzamiyya and Daraya are seen as the last pockets of resistance to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad around the capital. Turkey renewed airstrikes on Daesh sites in Syria, extending operations along the 90-kilometer corridor near the Turkish border, which Ankara says it is clearing of terrorists and protecting from Kurdish militia expansion. The Turkish military said its warplanes had bombed 3 sites around the Syrian settlements of Arab Azza and Al-Ghandura. Turkish forces and their Syrian rebel allies began the August 24th offensive by seizing the Syrian frontier town of Jarablus from Daesh terrorists before turning their sights on Kurdish YPG positions. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said the Turkish operation, dubbed Euphrates Shield, had been successful in clearing Daesh and the YPG from the 400 square kilometer area. Speaking in Ankara before heading to China for the G20 summit, Erdogan said Turkey had sought the establishment of a safe zone in Syria, but said that the idea had not received the backing of other world powers.
We propose to establish a safe zone in the south of Syria. I discussed this with almost all of our Western friends. They all said this would be good. But despite their remarks, when it came to take steps, they haven't done it so far. I believe that G20 needs to take the lead on this matter.
Here at home, 2 people were arrested by troops patrolling the northern border as they were attempting to cross into Syria. A Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army source said the border guards applied the rules of engagement and arrested the 2 people. Uzbek President Islam Karimov has died after suffering a stroke after 27 years in power. Karimov, 78, was taken to hospital last week after a brain hemorrhage, but the government has only said that he is critically ill. Karimov had ruled Uzbekistan since 1989, first as the head of the local Communist Party and then as president of the newly independent republic from 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. As the late Uzbek president did not designate a political heir, analysts say that transition of power is likely to be decided behind closed doors by a small group of senior officials and family members. According to the constitution, the chairman of the upper house of parliament is supposed to take over after Karimov's death, and elections must take place within 3 months. Karimov would be buried in his hometown of Samarkand tomorrow. An explosion ripped through a night market packed with customers in the Philippine city of Davao, killing at least 10 people and wounding at least 60 others. Davao is the home city of President Rodrigo Duterte, who was in the city but far from the location of the blast. Duterte is hugely popular in Davao, having served as its mayor for more than 22 years before his stunning national election win in May. Authorities are working to determine the cause of the explosion. In the eastern Chinese city of Hangzhou, security was tight as world leaders started to arrive for the Group of 20 summit. During the two-day summit, which opens on Sunday, world leaders are likely to renew their promises to use tax and spending policies to invigorate the sluggish world economy. As concerns grow about over-reliance on central banks to deal with the hangover of the financial crisis, there are some tentative signs of a more relaxed approach to public spending. Nearly 10 years after the financial crisis began, many central bankers sound exasperated that their bold stimulus attempts have not been followed up by governments. The G20 is an international forum that brings together the world's leading industrialized and emerging economies and accounts for 85% of the world GDP and two-thirds of its population. Affectionately called the Saint of the Gutters, during her lifetime, Mother Teresa of Calcutta will be made an official saint of the Roman Catholic Church on Sunday. Pope Francis will officially announce Mother Teresa as a saint of the Roman Catholic Church in a ceremony expected to be attended by hundreds of thousands of people. A Nobel Peace Prize winner, Mother Teresa was one of the most influential women in the Church's 2,000-year history, acclaimed for her work amongst the world's poorest of the poor in the slums of the Indian city now called Kolkata.
This is Missionaries of Charity in Kolkata, set up by Mother Teresa in 1950 with 12 nuns to help the poor, the dying and the destitute. Today the order has over 4,000 nuns across 133 countries to provide love and care for those in need. On September 4th, the Roman Catholic Church will make Mother Teresa a saint, just 19 years after her death.
She have seen people in front of her dying on the streets, or they are being eaten up by maggots, rats. They are eating from the dustbins. They are lying near the dustbins or drainages. She saw it herself and her heart was paining. She wanted a place where she can bring and take care of them, give them that dignity of life.
Most saints had to wait centuries to be canonized, but an exception was made for the nun known as the Saint of the Gutters in a city of 15 million people. Those who knew her say her sainthood is well deserved.
She has lived a saintly life, lived and shared her life for others. So in the eyes of people and in the eyes of God, I'm sure she is done God's work.
The Church defines saints as those believed to have been holy enough during their lives to intercede with God to perform miracles. Mother Teresa has been credited with 2 of them, both involving the healing of sick people. Although she was accused of trying to convert the needy to Christianity, she was revered by many as a model of compassion.
The first British Airways direct flight from London landed in Tehran today after nearly 4 years in suspension. The airlines, which first flew into the Iranian capital in 1946, becomes the second European carrier to resume flights into the country after Air France made the move in April following a pause for 8 years. BA will operate 6 return flights per week between London and Tehran. The resumption of BA flights follows the lifting of some sanctions against Iran in January and the reopening of the British embassy in Tehran last year.
Fantastic, because I come to Iran quite frequently and it was a big problem to get a flight in Iran Air, and traveling other airlines would take 14-15 hours, very tiring, but this was about 5 hours. We got here in 5 hours. And it was fantastic.
Samsung Electronics was under pressure after it delayed shipments of its premium Galaxy Note 7 smartphone amid reports of exploding batteries. Several people posted images and videos of charged Galaxy Note 7 online and said their phones had caught on fire. For its part, Samsung apologized to its customers and said it will replace all Galaxy Note 7 phones produced with a faulty battery and halt sales in the affected markets indefinitely. The fires dealt a major blow to the company's mobile earnings prospects, with shares dropping 2.5% after hitting a high record of over 1.5 million last week.
소비자 안전을
A solar eclipse delighted astronomy fans of Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean, drawing sky watchers outside to watch the so-called Ring of Fire. Some 3,000 people gathered to see the annular solar eclipse, the moment when the moon blots out most of the sun to create the appearance of a bright ring around its edges. Wearing protective glasses, residents and tourists watched and took pictures of the astronomical phenomenon for several hours.
Now, nearly looking like the moon.
La lune quitte le soleil. Et voilà, c'est la réunion de cette éclipse peut-être.
The torch relay for the 2016 Summer Paralympics in Rio de Janeiro that will bring together more than 4,000 para-athletes from 163 countries began its journey around Brazil. The flame was lit in the capital Brasilia, first of 5 cities hosting the Paralympic flame. Before the flame arrives in Rio, a total of 745 torch bearers will carry it inside the cities of Belém, Natal, Sao Paulo and Joinville, a journey of about 250 kilometers. A total of 1 million tickets have been sold thus far for the Paralympic Games, whose opening ceremony is scheduled for the 7th. Bayern Munich goalkeeper Manuel Neuer has been named captain of Germany following the retirement of Bastian Schweinsteiger. Neuer, who made his Germany debut in 2009, has made 71 appearances for the senior national side, conceding only 52 goals, and was a key part of the 2014 World Cup winning side. He faced competition from several players for the captaincy, with Bayern teammate Jerome Boateng saying on several occasions that he had hoped to take the armband. Mats Hummels, Toni Kroos and Sami Khedira were also mentioned as possibilities, but Germany boss Joachim Löw has selected 30-year-old Neuer to lead the side ahead of the 2018 World Cup qualification campaign. And finally, fair weather conditions tonight across the kingdom with northwesterly light winds. As for tomorrow, a slight drop in temperature is expected, bringing conditions within their seasonal average this time of year. Therefore, it will be moderate in the hilly areas and relatively hot in other regions. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a hot day with northerly winds and slightly choppy seas. Here now to look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Turkey renews airstrikes on Daesh sites in Syria, extending operations along the corridor near the Turkish border, which Ankara says it is clearing of terrorists and protecting from Kurdish militia expansion. Uzbek President Islam Karimov dies after suffering a stroke, leaving no obvious successor to take over the Central Asian nation. And Pope Francis will declare Mother Teresa a saint, canonizing the nun and Nobel Peace Prize winner who cared for the destitute and dying. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Ali Tuqan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.